Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Raymore City Council work session, special work session, actually, for Monday, June the 29th, 2026. We just have the one item on our agenda this evening, and as you can tell by the displays around us, what it's about, we're going to talk about the Justice Center Concept Design Review tonight. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, sir. Essentially, this is the council's opportunity. We've had the two public meetings. You are seeing tonight what was presented essentially at the second public meeting. What we are doing tonight is looking for input exclusively from the council on the design concepts that are here. That will be subject to then they'll be listening, our guests will be listening to what the council has to say tonight, putting in the input on that, and then there's no work session next week because City Hall is closed for the holiday, because we're all hands on deck on Friday for everything that's going on that day. So we moved the holiday several months ago to on Monday, but the July 20th work session then will be when we come back to the council with pricing information and financing information and all of that once this particular section is done. But tonight is kind of your chance to, as they used to say in the old days, dream about what this will look like and be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Murdoch, who's the point on the project.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, Mayor, members of the council tonight. We have a couple of guests, obviously, that are with us virtually, so I want to make sure that we recognize when you have questions tonight who you can pose those questions to. So on the left, when you look up at the screen there, is Jennifer Gecky. She is our architect from PGAV. In the center of the screen is Jim McLaren from MWL Architects. And he is, if he is at home, he is braving, I'm assuming, about 140-degree heat in Phoenix, which is where he is based. And then Pete Cedar, who works with Mr. McLaren, also of MWL Architects, is with us as well. And so they have been on kind of the public safety side of things as these designs have gone forward. So as we complete kind of the review of what we're going to do tonight and any questions that you have, especially if they are public safety or building related, we will turn those over to the architects to answer some of those questions for you tonight. This, what you are seeing tonight, is the product of a little over 2 months, almost 2.5 months worth of work between the city of Raymore and our firms who are represented here tonight. One of the things I do want to highlight for the council here is that the responsiveness of PGAV and MWL has been absolutely top-notch, and I do want to recognize that before we get into the details. When we have asked for extra meetings, phone calls, updates to plans, any of those kinds of things, they have been incredibly responsive and timely in getting those back to us so that we could review and have this particular program not only ready for the public last week, but ready for City Council tonight. And we sincerely appreciate working with them so far on this particular project. The designs that you see tonight are unaltered in terms of the feedback that we have received so far, so that you would get to see exactly what the public is seeing, and then we can compile all of the feedback from the public engagement sessions along with the surveys, which we have had now a couple of dozen entries between the first and second surveys related to this particular project, make any of those corrections and or suggestions to present options when we come for the final product on July 20th. Those kinds of things will help us inform the pricing decisions and things like that. There is one thing before I get into the details that I do want to highlight in the floor plans that you have versus what PGAV and MWL have provided us. And I know it's going to be hard to see on the floor plans because the writing is really small, but in the upstairs floor plan, the drawing that you have printed for you on the second floor courtroom does not show the prosecutor's office, which has been moved over towards the courtroom area. It still shows it up by the judge's chambers, I believe, which is near the top of your map in green. And so I just want to make sure that you know that that has been moved as we've had conversations with the court and the court employees to make sure that the prosecutor has better access to the attorneys who are coming to Raymore to work on court nights, along with then already being closer to the judge when he's in the courtroom. And so that change has already been made, but it's not on that particular drawing because, like I said, we wanted to present to you the unaltered drawings first. But that is a change that we feel is probably going to happen because it makes a lot more sense for the flow of the building. Before I allow PGAV and MWL to kind of go over with you the site options, which you have 3 of them in front of you, there are subtle differences to them, but they'll go over those site options with you and the floor plans. I did want to take just a brief moment also for anybody who may watch this after the meeting to kind of review how we got to this particular point. I know we've done that one time here leading into this particular contract when we approved this at the meeting in March, and then the second time in April. But we had an original staffing study that was delivered to the city of Raymore on January 4th of 2021 that detailed staffing needs that we would need well into the future. That included a recommendation for up to 20 additional sworn officers were part of that particular staffing report. We have obviously not added 20 sworn officers, though we have added 10 through 8 through, we had 2 and then 8 through the public safety sales tax, which we'll get to here in just a second. We also then, and I'm kind of going in chronological order for you here, okay? So we had the staffing study January 4th of 2021, and then we had the property at the Justice Center might sit on there at 58 and Pine. That deal was, or ordinance was completed on December 13th of 2021. And in that particular ordinance, we did specifically mention the possibility of a future municipal justice center. In the fall of 2022, the city undertook the first of what was a basic space needs analysis of this facility. And we got that in terms of the report back early in 2023 that detailed not only what we would need for our police department, but how we would repurpose downstairs to make sure that it could fit the growing community that we have, not only within our residents, but also within staff, especially in development services and engineering. And then April 8th of 2025, as you know, the residents approved the public safety sales tax, which we now have been collecting on in terms of funding some of the new officer positions and equipping those officers. And then the city council passed the long-range comprehensive plan on May 12th of 2025 that detailed this exact building over on the S-curve as the anchor for any future growth that we can do within that particular area of the city. And so that's kind of the progression of where we are at. Then we ended up with the concept design contract that was passed on April 13th of 2026. At this particular point, I am going to turn it over to Jennifer and Jim to walk you through the site options and the floor plans. After they have concluded, then we will open it up for discussion and any questions, and hopefully be able to answer any of your questions related to this particular project. So Jennifer and Jim, it's your show.
Okay, well, it always takes a minute to find the mute button. So anyway, got my speaker back. I wanted to say just a few comments about general site orientation, and then go to floor plan, and then I believe Jennifer wants to go through each of the 3 site options if we could. So generally, if you probably a good way to look at this would be to take a look at just any one of the site plans, because the floor plan options on each are virtually the same. We wanted to make sure that we designed something that could be shifted or moved and could be pretty flexible. So not seeing what you're looking at, I know you're looking at paper copies, but if you look at any one of those site plans, I'm looking at one that says site plan option 1. You'll see that what we did was we composed the building of 3 basic zones. There's a zone that is public parking, accessible from a variety of different ways per the options. And then there's a secure area that says staff parking in the back. And then you'll see there's also an area kind of off to the top of the page that says support building, and then there's a drive lane that gets to there, which allows actually access to what we call a support building. So the building itself is laid out in 3 different zones then, public, support or services, and secure. Now, up in the very top right, I want to call your attention to, we have an existing structure on site that is intended to be reused to house the mobile command post and some specialty vehicles that would benefit by being out of the weather. So that's an existing structure. So the process that we used was we came and we met with staff and worked through a validation and updating of the program material that was prepared in the past. And we were able to, we think, bring some pretty great efficiencies to that, which are going to be reflected in a moment in the floor plan. So now let's go from that. You'll see the main building there in that plan is, keep in mind, that's 2 stories. The support building is a little bit higher than a normal office building height because it has some specialty storage components to it and services. And then there's a link between the 2. This is Sallyport, and this is archaic castle stuff. Sallyport through the portals, you know, the drawbridges and all that stuff. That's what we still use this terminology, where you would bring someone that's potentially going to be detained into the building. It's essentially a garage to link the 2 buildings, so you can get from the main building to the support building through the Sallyport. Now, the reason why we oriented the building the way we did as a starting point was we wanted to get those zones and make sure the building could be clearly articulated for anyone arriving at the building to know where to be able to find a front door. There's a lot of public buildings that lose that, so we wanted to be careful about that. But we also wanted to orient the building so that the main orientation was at long directions were in the north and the south, because that will save you a substantial amount of operating costs over the life of the building, because you'll be able to get better natural light into the building and not get excessive heat gain or loss that we would see typically on the east and the west, where the sun is either raising or lowering and you get intense heating and cooling. So with that, if we could, let's go ahead and skip ahead to the floor plans, and then we can go back and I'll let Jennifer walk you through all these site-related plans. So the first plan that I have is labeled A101, and the way it works is the public enters what would be the bottom left in through a public entry vestibule, and they have an option then to either go straight ahead into the police lobby or turn right to a secondary vestibule that would allow free access up to a very significant mixed use space that would be able to be courts. It could be used for multipurpose in-service training, very flexible space. So at nighttime, if the courts are operating at night, you can close off the police lobby and divert traffic. That's why there's a public elevator at that location in the vestibule right there and a staircase. So again, during business hours, you'd walk straight ahead and there would be the service area for records, because that's what most of the contact typically is with people coming to a police station. And there'd also be some report taking rooms where someone could get a fingerprint taken, or where they could meet with an officer briefly for a follow-up visit. Okay. Now, I want to go to the complete other side now of the building to the right. Take it there. We've got 2 entries off to the far right. One towards the bottom is kind of a main patrol in uniform access point. And when they come through there, they have a mudroom on one side of it to clean up muddy boots and things like that in the wintertime, hang up things that need to be dried. And then a space for oversized bags that they carry, field bags and such, in those cubbies there. That allows for that stuff to be uh, dropped off before it goes into the building so we don't have those bags piling up or cluttering space into locker rooms or piled up in front of briefing rooms and things like that. Now, I want to go through the middle of the building first here. We tried to combine all the shared type spaces and try to get lots and lots of mixed use out of every space we could. So in the previous program, there was a lot of designated spaces. You know, there was a conference room for this group and a conference room for this group and a conference room for that group. In this program, basically we took all those spaces that were going to be shared, whether they're lockers or briefing or officers' report writing stations or conference rooms, and we lined those down the middle of the bar of the building so that they, the spaces that don't necessarily need a lot of natural light and can be shared, are available to anyone that needs them. Okay, you can make a request to reserve, say, a conference room. We have one large one, one small one, etc. The balance of this floor has a fitness area, which is just off the locker room. And we're not showing windows or anything at this level because we want to work in concert with our host architect, PJV, because they're going to be looking at how the aesthetics of the building work and what the windows will follow. But the fitness area is right off the locker, and it allows for outdoor flexible access points. So again, if someone outside of PD wants to use the fitness, potentially there's an opportunity to allow them into the building without having to go through the security or violate the security of the balance of the building. If we go to the complete other side, the top bar there, you'll see a couple of arrows coming in off to the left to that linking sally port between the main building and the support building. And what that allows us to do is officers can come in from that point, park, and in the support building, the top bar, they can drop off evidence. And I'll go through that in a moment. But they can also take any detainees and go down into the holding area there where people can be held in anticipation of being able to have an interview or whatever is needed in the short term. So what this allows for is the building codes require that the first responder portions of the building, patrol, those sorts of things, those have to be built to a higher coefficient of structural strength, just like a hospital or a fire station or anything like that. So what we tried to do is move all those higher dollar per square foot spaces into the bar on the bottom of the plan. But storage, pure storage, storing of evidence, quartermaster, things like that that don't need to be designed to that higher, more costly standard, we put in a very utilitarian structure, which is that top bar above that you can cross the sally port to get to. So by putting it in a separate structure, it's a less expensive way to get more bang for a buck. The balance of this floor picks up a lot of the support type spaces, copy bars, the sergeants and lieutenants. It's a very patrol driven floor, if you will. If you go across the sally port, you see one shade, that's all evidence. And then it goes into, like I say, quartermaster related stuff, deliveries, which can come from the line above, from that other drive lane. Then we have space where they can store tactical gear for SWAT or sorts of things. And then the last where it kind of drops and gets a little bit smaller. That's a drive-through bay that you can deliver vehicles from the services side without going into security if a car needs to be brought in for impound or vehicle examination forensically. So that's how the first floor works. If I bring someone in and I have to detain them and I have evidence, I can pull in that sally port, go one direction with my detainee, the other direction for my evidence. So should work pretty well. Now in the very middle of the building, you'll see a staircase. That staircase is actually open to the floor above because we wanted to have some space in the building where it wouldn't present such a distinction between patrol-related functions, administration, communications, and investigations, which are upstairs. So you'll see in a moment when we go to the second floor, when you get to the top of those stairs, That's where the food is. We find that the surest way to knit people together is by food. So the departmental lunchroom, which is really a busy place in the existing building, is right at the top of the stairs. So with that, let's go and look at the upstairs. Now, the upstairs, you'll see the second part of the support building drops off because it's just a single story building, as is the Sally Port. So let's start at the left because there's a lot of cross utilization over there, a lot of flexibility. When you got to the top of the stairs, there's an area where they can bring out on court nights security to screen people to move into what would be the courts area. There's also countertops and transaction counters to the court's clerks staff so that people that just are coming to pay a bill, they can continue to do that without having to go into court if it's not their night for court. But if they do come out of court, it's kind of like the dentist, you know, the counter is waiting for you to pay your bill on the way out after you've had your dental work done. So that's where the clerks are. There's restrooms to support them, and of course that elevator. Now, you can also get to that multipurpose room as the public during other hours of the day because it could be used for a citizens academy or a neighborhood watch formation meeting, or it could be used for in-service training or regional planning related things if you have multi-agencies working together for a specific pursuit. Sometimes they'll be big, large briefings, for instance, when you're working with other agencies on a crime. So the courts area is designed so that it can be accessed securely from the secure side, just kind of a door there to the left of that staircase that looks down on the floor below. Or it can be used by the public and be locked out and secured from two directions. So the balance of this floor then is, again, the center is the shared space. We have two conference rooms. We have space for copiers and printing, a staff restroom. On this floor, it's a bit larger on the second floor because on the first floor we have a lot of restrooms associated with the locker area, so we don't need quite as much there. At the top of those stairs is the break area, which is showing a little recess there to have outdoor seating potentially. And then we've got admin, the chief and the command staff just to the right of the break room there. Okay. Now I want to jump across the hall. I'm taking you all over the place. Across the hall, one of the things we really were trying to benefit by orienting the building the direction we did was we wanted to be able to make sure that we could get natural light into the emergency communications center that's glare free. Every major artist in the world has always had a studio space that faces north because that's where light is glare free. So that's why all the communications consoles are shown there. You'll see that there's two kind of half circles and then a supervisor's console. And then we've got a space off to the right. There was one notification early on that there'd be a desire to be able to expand this potentially to add services in the future or for other agencies. So we have a whole nother pod shown there and that's shaded. Now, if we go down below that on the same side, that's all investigations. So you'll see that there's workstations, about 6 workstations with space to add 2 more in the future. And then we have 2 sergeant's offices and then an office that's labeled hotel. We've tried to put spaces in the building that were designated as future growth spaces so they could be used for other purposes in the short term. We're trying to get as many, I'm going to call them twofers and threefers out of these spaces as we possibly can. The original proposal for the building on a previous planning efforts, the building came almost to 53,000 square feet, 52,980 or 890. The plan you see here covers all those spaces, and we think, you know, pretty efficiently provides for them, but it tallies up about 10,000 square feet less. This is about 43,000 square feet to get all that stuff done. So, at any rate, I know I went through fast and I apologize. So I don't know if you want to ask questions now or if you want to have Jennifer move through the sites and then catch them all at the end, or how you want to work.
If anybody has a specific question about a floor plan, we certainly could do that right now. Or if you'd like, we could go and go through the site plans and just tackle this all as one discussion. It's obviously completely up to you all. Would you like to keep going? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and keep on going to the site options, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going on mute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all. As Jim kind of highlighted some of the building orientation comments, so something to note about all three options, site options, and they're all very similar. And the differences really are how the public accesses the building. So the staff really accesses the building very, identical on all three options. We looked for opportunities where it would make sense for the entrance into the secured lot. All of them show considerable buffer of site trees between the neighbors and the police facility. And a secure gate perimeter for staff. The three options, if we want to start with option one, accesses, there's a lot of flexibility with the site due to the size. We've pushed the main building forward so that it does have a prominent position along Highway 58, and you can see it coming and going from either direction. As Jim noted, there's a separate public parking that does not access any of the staff drives or staff parking. So the first option creates a drive that the public can access in front of the main building to get to the public parking lot. And the secondary or the other access is off of Pine Street, a significant setback away from 58. For each option, there's kind of an aerial view that gives you a better understanding of that particular layout. And although it's maybe hard to tell, the Highway 58 sits up higher than that drive. So you kind of look down on it a little bit, but we still want that building to have a lot of presence. And we tried to use the idea of a potential veteran memorial park or something like that to front the Highway 58. Option two actually takes that park memorial garden a little bit farther and closes off that cross section between the north and the south so that you cannot drive between the two areas. And option three creates an alternate site access point that is in alignment with other development across Highway 58. And there's still the access point from Pine Street, but this one adds an alternate site access alignment. There's been some discussion about, the future, access points along 58. So that was looking at that, and it kind of reduces the memorial garden to something smaller just in front of the main building instead of extending it farther along Highway 58. I think that kind of points out the main differences between the site options, but again, I can answer any questions that you may have about any of them.
Kevin, I know you had a question. Did you?
Yeah, my
pose it now?
question was on the site plan. The dispatch center being on the second floor, is there any concern? Obviously, those folks can't leave their post, and we have severe weather from time to time. Is there any concern for that being on the second floor and not on the ground floor? Just curious.
If
Go
I could,
ahead, Jim.
Typically, the reason why we've moved them up to the second floor is because it's usually, in a normal circumstance, the safest part of the building to be in. It doesn't have direct access to or visibility to someone that could walk up to a window. So what it will require when we're moving to a second floor is we would be proposing the use of the same word. Jennifer and we are involved in the new statewide dispatch center for the highway patrol in Salina. And what we're doing there, and we would have to do here, is any glazing that we put on that space would have to be essentially the high projectile glazing that allows for, it's kind of this, meets the Florida standard, actually kind of even more. It's the Florida standard and then adds. So we can do that without having to put powered shutters or anything over the glass. So we believe we're in good shape, but we would absolutely have to use special glass in that particular center.
I know, Jim, this is Chris Turnbow. So I know that I had talked to staff regarding that particular item, that I was concerned about not bunkering the facility and the added costs associated with taking it below ground. But I know that you can harden the facility for an EF5 tornado based upon what you just spoke about. Is that correct?
Yes, we're doing that in the Salina project, and we just finished one a couple of years ago in Sumner County in Tennessee, which had been, the previous center was destroyed by a tornado. And so they were very sensitive to it. And when we went through the hardening of the facility, we will have to have a hardened door getting into the center, and we will have that special glazing. The wall surfaces going up there too, typically we'll be using, try to be using like a precast concrete or something to surround that area. So it'll be, you know, exceptionally hardened. But usually and I know this is, you know, when I'm getting old, you can see, right? Okay, and over all these years of doing lots and lots of police stations, what I found is that when we left people in lower floors or without natural light, the health implications and the amount of turnover was exceptional. And in most of the agencies we work with, they'll tell us that they're, you know, out of pocket when they add it all up, they're $60,000 to $70,000 a person for training to bring in new staff members each time. So you get a 30% turnover. Oh my gosh, that's expensive. So yes, it will be more expensive to put it upstairs, but you know, you can find me down the road if I'm wrong, but my guess is your turnover will go way down, because that has been historically what's happened in all the other projects we've worked on is, you know, 3 and 4 years when we do our checkups and say, what's your turnover? It's usually, you know, we just have hardly any turnover anymore. So it's usually a cost that's worth incurring.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Kevin?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you bet.
my comment was, I just wanted to make sure they're safe, and it sounds like you've got that all covered. So that's all I needed.
Anyone else? Open it up for questions. Right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've just found out from our ESB director that Johnson County, Kansas's dispatch center did the very same thing that you talked about, and for those specific reasons, and harden the target or harden the building for those reasons, yeah, rather than go below
Yeah.
ground.
We have 2 projects. I won't say where because they'll kill me if they know that I use them as an example, but they're 2 cities side by side, same demographics. One built a communication center that was underground, and one that hardened it and put it above with north facing light. The buildings are done, you know, for many years now, 8 to 10 years. And whenever I go back, the one that has the natural light is constantly stealing employees from the one that's in the basement. And they're very proud of that fact, because the other city trains them and then they get them.
I know.
So
It
so
happens
you want to
from
be the
time
one that
time.
gets them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Jay.
So I had a couple of questions, one probably for perhaps Mr. McLaren and then 2 for the chief. So the first one, and there's going to be about 4 of us here that'll remember this. I like the design of the building from the conceptual drawings. we have a bad taste in our mouth with this little tower here on the corner because we had the same thing happen out front. Now, granted, that was 30 years ago it was built, something like that, but we had to take that tower off. So I'm assuming staff probably interacted with you on that design piece, but I just want to make sure that we have assurances
The
that's
tower,
not going to
the
happen
tower is a
again.
placeholder for,
Okay,
for the,
fair
for the
enough. Yeah, it
architecture.
looks
So,
great.
yeah.
But I remember we had some structural problems. We ended
Right,
up having to
yeah.
take that one down. So, fair enough. That's been addressed.
I think the plan, as it's shown, was we were just trying to come up conceptually with some sort of a landmarking element that
Fair
would draw your attention to, here's the front door. But what it is, you can tell right now, we're so in the infancy of where windows are going and, all the elements,
Yeah, fair
don't
enough.
wanna-
I just, like I said, that's one that was, you get a little heartburn from that one. It was, yeah, we had to spend some money on that to fix it, and then we had to spend some money to take it down. So that one's fair.
Oh,
2 questions
don't
for the
like that.
chief. So chief, cars at the station, hot call, emergency call, which way did they go out? I'm assuming it's out of the staff parking onto this road and out to Pine Street. Is that what you would say?
That's what I would say, the way this is designed right now, yes.
Yeah, going through the post office is probably problematic. At
That's a
nighttime's
terrible
not, at nighttime, not so much, midnights, but definitely,
After
Not during
hours,
the
it'd be fine.
yeah, exactly. Fair enough. And then the third question was, if we or Mr. Fearborn, the mayor has to stand up ICS for a major event, where's your EOC in here? Where would you put it?
I'd put it in the courtroom.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir. That's all I wanted.
So if I could weigh in on the 3 site plans, from an intel officer's perspective, working counterterrorism on a regular basis, I really don't like the drives that go in front of the building, to be honest with you. I like the side parking with no passage through in front of the building, but that's just my perspective. And so I would have a tendency to lean toward site option 2. I didn't know if the chief had thought about that potential for drive-by stuff happening to our facility. I mean, I guess you could drive into the parking lot and drive around and do it, but it just seems like that kind of access across the front of the building gives a little too much
There's been a little bit of
opportunity.
thought of that, and obviously you could put ballards and whatnot to try to get them a little bit further away from the building. However, without the car, there's still gonna be foot traffic.
Right.
What is everybody carrying these days? They're carrying backpacks and so forth and so on. But I think that, yeah, there's been some thought on both,
Seen very few crimes occur without a vehicle, though.
yes.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Baker.
A few questions here. First, the post office entrance, I know from early on, that one's always been interesting to me. Have we had communications being that that's a federal facility and it's a one-way going through there and very limited in how we're gonna operate with the post office?
Sorry, there we go. We have had the initial conversations and talked with the postmaster, which is actually based over in Belton. Mr. Gress has actually been leading those particular conversations, and they've actually passed the drawings on now in terms of how we would widen that drive into a shared drive, that they would still have access to the north part of that drive. We would have access on the other side to come in. That's not a final thing yet, but they have been open to those particular discussions, yes.
Would the public, like when they exit out of there, would they have to go past the mailbox, then turn left? Or is it gonna be,
We haven't,
Lane in and
we haven't made the final decision because it will depend on the site, on which site orientation we use, on whether or not we would want it to just be an entrance, because if there is a drive that allows you to go all the way from north to south, we probably would end up with an entry-only aspect to that particular drive. But if we have a closed loop, then it would be traffic going both directions.
and then I guess the street cut into Madison on options 2 and 3 is that something MoDOT's gonna have to be involved in, being as that's so close to Pine Street, having it kinda, probably within 50 feet or less?
MoDOT would have nothing to do with this because we're under control of this entire section of 58.
Okay. And then my last one, just back to the tornado thing. Well, actually, I had 2 on that. So good points brought up. That where would people go? Like, say, court's in session on the second floor. We go into a tornado warning. We have a full courtroom. We have a bunch of people upstairs. Is there a place? Obviously, they're probably they're going to have to go down to a lower level because we won't harden the entire second floor. But is that built into the plan somewhere? If we did have to evacuate even employees at that point.
We haven't shown anything as of yet, but the reality is what we typically do is as we get the plan further developed, we'll designate, some zone that becomes the area of refuge. So whether it's at the custody area, since that's going to be all hardened, or we haven't, we need to sit down with the user group and the PD and figure out what's the best route of action to do for that. So hasn't been set yet. It has, and I failed to mention, and thank you, whoever brought that up, the courtroom is multipurpose and it's the incident or emergency services center too. So that would also have to be hardened as well. So.
And then lastly, like now I know they set up the metal detectors outside here. They have to take them down. Are those built in somewhere on the second? I take it you would go up the stairs of the elevator, you get to the second floor, but there would be metal detectors?
I think they're bringing them in.
Or do you just have to come and go, or we?
Once they get to the top of the stairs, if you look at the plan, I know it's so hard to read, everything's so small, so bear with me, but if you see where the front counters are for the courts clerks, you'll see there's a storage space there where we could house security equipment and only bring it out when it's needed. But the other thing we could do is we could potentially, because usually you want to move the people through before you allow them anywhere near the door to the courtroom. We have had, though, some clients that have built it into the actual doorway going into the courtroom. But our position, it's better to roll it out when court's in session, move people through security, and then once they're through that point, then they can freely come and go from courts to restroom, courts to clerk, that sort of thing. So that staging area at the top of the stairs, it's all yellow there. That's where we contemplated the security would be operated on days when it's needed.
Anything else? Yes, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you. I know we'd mentioned the staffing study, and, obviously, it's already been said, we're kind of projecting for some growth in some of these areas, et cetera. To our best guesstimate at this point, looking forward to the growth of Raymore, et cetera, how long do we feel this, how many years out do we feel this facility provides for additional growth before it needs to be addressed again? I understand that that's not concrete, but are we thinking some extended time? Or is this, I know really, anyone who's toured the PD downstairs knows that they're busting at the seams, and we're already behind the 8 ball on this, really, with the facility that's really needed by them right now. But what does that look like moving forward?
Both with the footprint here, expansion capabilities that we've been talking about it's going to be used for this in the interim, as well as the site expansion possibilities. There's a lot of trees being kept here. But if we got to that, minimum 50 years. On the site, longer than that.
Okay. For Chief, just kind of wondering your open thoughts on this, as you've had engagement and, just kind of looking at this draft here, I guess at this point, any additional needs that you see that maybe we haven't addressed yet or have been working on?
I think that the communication between all of us has been, outstanding. And I think that if there was an issue that come up and we talked through it pretty quickly, and I'm pretty excited about these plans for conceptual design. They look really good. You can see efficiency all over those prints, right? Like you said, downstairs, you've toured that area, you know how packed we are, and I think the working environment alone and the flow of the working, the offices and the working environment's going to just be outstanding.
All right, thank you. Kind of more of a note, I think I kind of tend to agree with Mr. Mayor with your comments earlier on the access and drive lane on the front side of the building and that, maybe, potentials with that as well and traffic flow. I just did, and this is maybe a very minor detail and knowing that this is a draft as well, but just thinking through public access in and out through the vestibule, the entry vestibule, up and down the stairs or the elevator, more specifically on court nights or, a high volume on the second floor. I noticed from the vestibule into the elevator or stair corridor, there's only a single 3-0 door there right now. Is that something that needs to be a 6-0, kind of, instead of a single, like a double door for access?
That might be that very definitely might be something we're going to have to take a look at, because what we'll do is we'll do a exit load calc from each of those public spaces upstairs, particularly courtroom and all that, and that may dictate the width of the door or double doors. At this point, we hadn't gotten that far because we hadn't done our. There's 2 checks that need to be made when we get into them. One is fixture counts for restrooms, the other is exiting routes. So, Jennifer, I don't know if you.
Yeah, I mean, just what Jim said, we typically will do a code plan of the plan and determine what our exit width needs to be. Sometimes it could go to a 3'6" door. Sometimes it'll go to a 6 foot. But we've got plenty of stairs and opportunities for modifying the exit width.
That makes sense. I know, run calcs for egress, et cetera, and we'll modify accordingly. It's just something that kind of stuck out. I know right now we're just trying to get the right rooms in the right places, so.
Well, and something just to think about in the future, we can put doors on hold opens, so it doesn't have to feel like an obstacle. It can be open and then close when it's needed to for security or for fire. So doors don't always have to be an obstacle visually, and when you're moving through a space.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker?
For the deliveries and the service, and I'm in the shipping and delivery business, as it's currently set up, if it were me, I would probably be charging limited access to make deliveries in this facility, just because you have that on the north side of the support building with a staff gate access that probably a truck or box truck will not be able to go through, so they would have to pull in and then back out, and you've got some blind 90s backing out and all that. Is there a better place just for my fellow brothers and sisters in the shipping industry, that would not be a good place to make deliveries back there? Looks good on paper, but I'm telling you, it's very difficult. If anything more than a car or van would be very difficult to get in that room.
We'll definitely be looking, because I hear you. When we looked at it, that's why we moved that entry gate all the way to the end there, was so that they could make deliveries. But we haven't shown like the hammerhead you'd need at the end or a bulb at the end to be able to make a graceful U-turn to exit out. So and if there's a better way to do it, we're all ears.
Just to your point, we've had that discussion, right, of trying, as we get into a more engineered design plan of what we would need to do around that particular space, because that duly noted on that one.
It's very interesting here at City Hall in the current practice, because most of the deliveries come to the front door, and then it's kind of flip a coin who has to drag stuff downstairs every single time. And for some reason, police stuff is heavy. I don't know.
Good boy. Yes, Mr. Burke.
Thank you. Jumping to the outside area again, I'm looking at, on Madison, I'm sure this has probably already been thought about and talked about, and it's just not reflected here, but with it being above the level of part of the building, with that natural curve there's going to be some time where people will go over that road and down below. So they'll definitely need some kind of a bollard system or a decorative sidewalk, concrete thing or something.
That has been an extensive discussion among chief and myself and the architects too, whether that becomes bollards and even some kind of decorative hardened wall that would prevent those kinds of things, which we do have examples of from other facilities. But you're right, the elevation change is pretty drastic, pretty quick, and so that's definitely been a part of the conversation. That would be coming with the more detailed design.
Thank you for reassuring me.
Yeah.
I thought sure it was taken care of.
Mr. Rowe?
Appreciate it. Great presentation. I'm leaning towards site plan 2 as well, and I know during one of the open public sessions, we had talked about maybe adding a street light eventually, if necessary.
That's correct, sir.
Tom, you're an old cop. You got any ideas? Any thoughts or ideas?
Is there going to be like a holding room for the detective? If you're bringing somebody upstairs to interview, you want to put them in a holding room until you get your interview room all put together, whether you need a camera or you have somebody standing behind a two-way mirror. Something along those lines would be beneficial. Plus, I'm assuming it's the 2 interview rooms in beige. That's what that is.
We,
Upstairs? You talking
Yeah,
upstairs?
upstairs, yes.
And if you look back downstairs into the holding cells and off to the right of the holding cells, I believe, my eyes are,
Yeah, I know. Right there with you.
it's on. Downstairs in the booking area, there's an interview room down there as well. And I think there would be some more discussion about soundproofing that interview or the layout of the booking rooms to give a little bit more privacy. That would be the quickest, as you know, for the quick interviews next to the booking. Now, those investigations where we're just bringing somebody in from the street just to come up for an interview that they're not in custody, we'll probably bring them upstairs through the elevator or through the steps.
But to get to those 2 rooms, you gotta walk through a sound vestibule, is that what that says?
Upstairs,
Are you talking about upstairs?
That's correct. You would, yeah, you'd come up the stairs and then you would go into what is essentially
A
a
hallway.
lobby, a hall
Right.
/ lobby kind of area, and then you could access the rooms.
And
Now, there
James,
again- Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Mayor.
No, go ahead, Chief.
And there again, if you're utilizing that area, you can go right down those stairs that are just to the east of those and right out the building. So we don't have to bring them all the way through the building.
Yep. And James, I see throughout where you have commodes and sinks and toilets, but I noticed that the 2 items that look like arrows that point inward to the detention area appear to be access areas for plumbing and such. Should there not be a toilet sink combo on that particular wall that's shown in the diagram?
you're good. Yes, there absolutely should. There would be a combo where it's like an acorn penalware fixture and it would be attached to that angle. And what we did was we showed the service chases. What we try to do is always make sure that it can be serviced by a technician to make sure plumbing is working and everything without having to take tools or things into the holding area. So the access panels are at the outside, but there would be a combination toilet, lav, fixture in each of those holding rooms on either side of the
I
angle.
thought so. I just didn't see him in the drawing, but
Yeah.
I was pretty certain that's what it was. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Barber.
Yeah, I just had, this is for Mr. Fairborn. Do we have in our inventory here at City Hall magnifying glasses? If we don't, I'm gonna bring one next time.
Or you can carry around the chart over there if you want to.
I was waiting for that. Thank you, sir.
I take full responsibility for that. I even told him this morning when I printed these out, I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be pretty small, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it's at that light green there, fitness room.
One more question on
Sure.
my end here. I know between site plan 1 and then 2 and 3, I believe had the same spaces, but there's slightly larger amount of public parking in the lot for site plan 1. Was there reasoning behind that, or how does city staff feel about the 56 over the 70 spaces?
We're very comfortable with the 56. We've done the car counts even on a moderate court night, and we still are okay with that. The 70 is essentially, I mean, that's nice to have the extra, but 56 is going to be sufficient for us. Yeah.
Lots of green space around it too, for expansion purposes if necessary. Just, Mr. Rowe, did you have something?
Yes, just on option 3, I see that there's a little trail, and granted, the building is offset from the road a little bit more on that, but is it possible to do that little walking trail, assuming if we ever have to build out additional parking, and we do talk about going off across North Madison, if we were ever to utilize that space, can we still do some sort of walking path that brings you a little closer?
So the council knows, in addition to this, the rest of the council, in addition to this, we can't forget the fact that across Madison, North Madison, there is a large triangular piece of land that could factor sooner or later into how we're looking at parking in general on this as we expand. And staff is currently in talks with the current owner of that property just to try to kind of get their initial thoughts on what they would like to see that priced at, which would certainly help, obviously, if that were being used, especially for overflow parking on a court night. Would need the entire piece of property, have some thoughts going through our heads on what we could be doing with the rest of it as well. But it would definitely require some beefed up pedestrian traffic ways, whether it be a trail, whether it be additional sidewalk, whatever, to get from that location to the front entrance of the building.
Anybody else? Mr. Circo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, you know, we've talked in the past, if we could ever find the land to build a park for the military park to show our veterans, our people, something we could put, if we could have the land. I know it was mentioned earlier that some of that land can maybe possibly be squeezed in down the road, so we can have that stuff, the Army, Navy stuff representative to a nice small park people can go to. I don't know, I know it was mentioned earlier. I hope maybe down the road, maybe we can define some of that land for that.
Anybody else? Well, James, looks like you guys have a little work cut out for you, and along with staff, to kind of mull around some of the ideas that were brought up this evening. And I'll turn it up. Do you have any closing comments?
Well, I guess I'm pretty sure I speak for Pete and Jennifer, but I got to tell you, you guys are wonderful to work with. This has been a really great process when we've offered some, solutions where we could make, spaces work for multiple functions and things like that. Everything has been on the table and been ready to be considered. And it's just, I just thank you for having the honor to work with you.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer, did you have anything?
I feel the same way as Jim. It's been a great collaboration so far. So we really hope that you guys are able to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Fearborn.
Anything? That concludes staff report on this item, sir.
Okay. Well, I know that you had something you wanted to bring up. I'm going to hold it restricted to just your comments, though.
I just wanted to say, Jim and Jennifer, we're good. We're moving on to a different topic. So thank you all both for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you, Pete.
Since it
Good
may
night.
include potential spending or design changes, those should be held at a later time. It's just kind of a other item if you want to introduce that. I don't know that it's going to be limited discussion tonight on that, but I know you wanted to make a point.
Yes, and it just involved Friday night. We had the Rock the Ridge, great activity, a lot of people there. Just the situation with the parking, because we had rainstorms, we had, the options were very limited where people could park at. We had people, apparently, from what I've heard, turned away. We had people, the parking lot's full. We had.
Well,
very
turned
little-
away from that particular parking spot,
Parking
not
lot,
turned
yeah.
away from the event.
No, they just said that you can't park here, and then go down the road, that parking lot was full. We had people park, almost, that subdivision north of the park, and then across the street to the east, just a long distance to walk. And that's always been kind of my concern, that, a backup plan to something that, if we brought something in of a major entertainment magnitude, we would need more parking. And, my thing, like what Granby did with a gravel parking lot or whatever, that for temporary, someday maybe we'd pave it, but having more of a backup in there. And I think it's just, I know leaving, I talked to a couple of the public works people, and they had expressed, there was some tough parks people, yeah. There were some, tough people out there that, you can't get to an event at the last minute, you got to plan ahead. So I just think, maybe we could down the road. I know that that's, stuff that we have to put in budgets and all that, but kind of consider that, more probably sooner than later, but as we go forward with the plaza and all that, and then that's a separate project too. But I just think we owe it to our citizens. We have what I think it can be a world-class facility, and with what happened Friday night, there's a lot of people saying it's a great activity, and you had so many different things for kids and vendors and, all in one. And I think it really exposed our amphitheater for what the potential is there. And a great band that was playing that brought in a lot of people. So that's just one of those things, be prepared for what could come, because if we bring someone that's even bigger and we, a lot more money to entertainment, I think we would need to equal out the ability to park to put a bigger function.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Mother Nature didn't cooperate, because we had about 179 spaces that we weren't able to use due to the mud. So unfortunately, we had planned for it, but not the rain. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, Mr. Barber. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand, Mr. Baker, but I look at it too, a year ago, our parking's a lot better than it was, so they have improved it. And I also would say this really is a park board discussion. I mean, I think sometimes we kind of get the cart before the horse, but I think we have a park board for a reason. We got folks on the park board, I'm sure
good
they
point.
know,
Yeah.
they know what's going on, and we just to make sure that they have the tools they need, in the future, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for your attention to the big topic tonight, the Criminal Justice Center. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some numbers in front of you here in a couple of weeks and get your support for moving forward. So thank you very much.